Good morning, everybody. Nice to be back here on Facebook Live this morning. Today, talking to you about how you connect your students with others around the world. It is a surprisingly rainy, crazy morning in Bangkok here today. Normally, it's kind of sunny and hot this time of year. It's summer and it's really super humid and dry, but today we woke up and it was like thundering and massive lightning. I can see lightning streaking across the sky here. So it's an interesting morning for me today. And since we're talking about connecting globally, I thought I'd give you a little window into what it's like here in Thailand this morning. So it's just me today, so I'm going to be old school again, and I've got my little notebook here on connecting your classroom globally. So there's some kind of tips I'm going to talk about today, and I'm going to break it down into 3 parts and share, I guess, my thinking on connecting your students globally using technology. And the first part, kind of the overview part on this piece of paper, which I'll put super close there for you, is why. Like, why would you bother doing this? Why do you want to go through the headache of setting up an online space for your classroom or finding a collaborative partner for your classroom and getting connected and kind of sharing learning in a digital space? What's it worth? And I think lots of things. For one, I think connecting your classroom to a global audience. Oh, hi, Matt. It's nice to see you from Beijing. If you're stopping in and joining the live stream, please let me know. Say hello and tell me where you're from. It would be super cool if we got people from all around the world on this chat about connecting your classroom globally. So back to my little piece of paper here. Why would you want to do this? Why would you want to bother spending your time investing all this energy in getting this online space set up and connecting your kids with a global audience and kind of sharing? Why is that so important? And I think for me, as an adult who has lived overseas for 17 years, I think there's nothing more important for everyone than to really understand that people are different. The world is different. We can have a better understanding of people and cultures and perspectives on the world by connecting with others who are not in our physical space. Mads is coming in from Beijing, and she can give you a little bit of a perspective on this too, having grown up overseas. So she's a third culture kid. And I think this concept of getting to know other people, getting to know other cultures, understanding how to communicate and collaborate and connect in digital spaces, to me, this is a really critical skill. Just giving you like a very tiny bit of background. I grew up, my parents worked for IBM. So I grew up in a family of, I guess I would say like almost like a precursor to the connected kind of collaborative business environment where my mom actually ran the transition to the euro for IBM from her little home office in Reading, Connecticut, the town that I grew up in that has less than 8,000 people. So even as a kid, I think I saw the power and the potential to be connected and understand that businesses run this way. There are very few businesses where an idea is thought of, the thing is actually created and marketed and sold all in the same place. So understanding how to collaborate and connect in a virtual environment is a key skill, not only for being successful as an adult in this multicultural world, but also just specifically being able to function in a business environment. So for me, that's the why. And I got a little summary there, and that will be in our show notes as well. And thank you, Mads, for sharing a little bit about third culture kids. So now that I've kind of covered the why, building understanding, building empathy, building tolerance, learning about others who might be different from you, getting a real world global experience, and understanding the way that business works, now that we've kind of talked about that it is really important, it is really valuable for you to connect your students globally. How do you do it? So that's my next section of this paper here. And I've got start small. That's my advice for you. Start with something that is achievable, something you feel like you can do and you can have success with, something that's not going to take over everything that you're doing in your classroom, so that you can kind of expose your students to this idea of being connected globally, but maybe not steamroll over everything else you have to do in your classroom. And so there are lots of really great projects that you can join, and that's why I've kind of got them listed here. And I will put them in the show notes too. So some of the really easy projects to join that I've listed here are things like Skype an author, Mystery Skype, doing something like ePals or virtual field trips, and Global Read Aloud. Those are all really simple, straightforward projects that kind of help you get connected to a wider audience that can be like quick, almost even a one-off experience. So Skype an author, you can get connected with an author and they will come in and Skype into your classroom or your library, depending on the kind of setup that you have, and talk about their book. How awesome is that? To get kids connected with the author of a book that they're reading and learn about the world from their perspective too. And I think lots of schools have Skype an author going on, particularly in elementary school libraries, but it is totally relevant all the way up to upper high school. I've seen IB, which is like AP or absolutely higher level language classes, Skyping with an author to get their perspective about the topic that they're learning about and to kind of get insight into the book. And that's so empowering and exciting for students to meet that expert who they've been learning about for so long in a face-to-face context. Hi Scott, nice to see you. Thanks for joining. Mads is sharing some thoughts on the elections in France. What a great example, right? To get connected to maybe some other people actually in France and hear about what the election is, what is happening with the election there, and getting some perspectives on what French people are thinking about their own election, and then our own perspectives here in our classroom. So in my case, that will be in Thailand, but wherever you are. So Skype an author, super relevant. When you think about Skype an author, don't limit yourself to just an author. There happens to be just a great network of Skype an author, but you can Skype any sort of expert, and that's a great way to tap into the parents in your classroom. Like you could see if there are parents in your classroom who are an expert in a field, or maybe no experts in a field, and you can Skype those people into your classroom. You've got a chemist in your classroom, and you teach chemistry, well, why not Skype them in and talk about what it's like to be a chemist today? You don't have to limit yourself to the people who are immediately kind of volunteering to do this, like the authors in the Skype an Author network. You could connect with people in your community who are experts in the area that you're trying to teach. And that's a perfect way to open your classroom doors a little bit in a really non-stressful environment, but purposeful and authentic and relevant to your subject area. So kind of along those lines, I already mentioned all these. Skype an author. There's another one called Mystery Skype, which is kind of an ongoing project, and you don't know who you're going to Skype with. So like it's a little bit curiosity and fun, but same kind of idea that you're welcoming someone into your classroom. Kids are sharing and talking to them, kind of opening the doors and seeing who you can bring into your classroom environment. I've got a couple more on there. ePals, virtual field trips, and Global Read Aloud. I'm going to skip ahead just for a sec to Global Read Aloud because it's also similar. Global Read Aloud is another type of kind of Skype in project where you are reading aloud to another classroom. So the idea is you would have someone read aloud to your class. It's kind of very similar to that Skype an Author, but instead you're reading books aloud. That's another great global project. So all of those are really simple ways to get connected with either experts or other unique individuals that you want to bring into your classroom. Just thinking about Skype in general, the possibilities are kind of endless there, and it doesn't have to be Skype. It can be Google Hangout. It can be a Facebook Live kind of session like this. Anything where you're getting people into your classroom to kind of share a different perspective is a really easy way to get connected globally. And then the two other ones on my list that I haven't talked about here, ePals and virtual field trips. ePals is a well-established program where you basically are doing pen pals, but it's electronically. There's actually a website and an organization that sets all those connections up for you. What's great about the actual ePals organization is they really do a lot with the local schools, so you can get a really kind of on-the-ground feeling of what things are like in different countries. But you can set up your own ePals. You don't have to use that organization. You have friends on Facebook who live in different countries. You know me, I live in another country. Mads is here, she lives in another country. Let us know if you want to have an exchange with your kids and our kids in Thailand and Mads in China and anyone else who might be on here. Please say hello, tell us where you are. Maybe we can set up a little email exchange right here through this Facebook Live, which would be kind of awesome. So just sending emails and connecting in a written form digitally is a great way to open up your classroom without too much stress. And then probably the easiest way is to take some kind of virtual field trip. So you can use Google Earth to go and visit other places. If you have access to Cardboard, you can use Google Expeditions and see other places in virtual reality. So the idea behind starting small is to do something achievable, do something that's quick, do something that gets kids excited about learning and sharing and hearing from other people in other places, so they're enthusiastic about kind of getting those different perspectives. So far already, we've talked about why it's important to connect your classroom, and we've talked about some strategies for starting small. Now I've got two more sections, which is to connect yourself and then to connect your class. And this is where it gets a little bit slightly more complicated. So to me, I think the next step, once you've done those fun, small things, the next step is to connect yourself. And what I mean by that is to build a personal learning network for yourself. And I think the idea behind that is because when you have a personal connection with someone in another place, the learning that can happen between your two classes is way more authentic because you know each other well. And so as a teacher, I think you can get and have more valuable and meaningful connections with other classes by being a connected educator yourself. There are lots of ways to get connected, and you can kind of start small. And in fact, I did one earlier this morning. I don't know if anybody in this Facebook Live was actually in that Twitter chat, but if you were, please say hello and let me know. This morning, I participated in a Twitter chat, New York Schools Twitter chat, and that was great. All it was I used my Twitter account, which you can have a Twitter account. I went to the hashtag New York Schools Chat, and I participated in the conversation. Lisa Nielsen was one of the organizers, and she was in a previous Facebook Live that I did here, and she invited me to the chat. But what she did was she set up discussion questions, and then as participants, we just went in and answered the questions. There were tons of people in that chat that I have never met before, but now we've started a little bit of a relationship. I replied to some of the things that they said, they replied to some of the things that I said, and now I kind of have a little bit of a connection with them. And if I wanted to continue that connection to maybe connect our students, it would be really easy for me to keep having that conversation with them. So if you are interested in building your own personal learning network and getting connected with other educators, a really easy way to get started is to share your learning on Twitter and participate in something like a Twitter chat. If you're not available to do the real-time Twitter chat, you can follow up in the slow chat later, which means you just add the hashtag to whatever tweet you're sharing. And there are all sorts of hashtags that are specifically related to education, and we've got lots of resources in the show notes for you today. All of the educational hashtags, Cybraryman, keep a great list of educational hashtags. So we've got all those in the show notes for you today that's pinned at the top. So you can take a look at any sort of educational hashtag that you might be able to find other teachers that are in your subject area. Basically, you can do the same thing, build a personal learning network in any social media space that's interesting to you. Twitter is basically where I started, Twitter and blogs, but I know lots of teachers that really prefer Instagram or they prefer Pinterest. So they're building their network of connections in a social media space that makes sense for them. So whichever tool works for you, doesn't really matter. There are educators everywhere. So on my little list, I have share your learning, build your personal learning network, and you can do that with Twitter, you can do it with Instagram, you can do it with blogs. It's really effective when you use hashtags or you join an educational chat. All of that will help you build your own personal learning network. There are, of course, also already existing teacher networks. There are a lot in Google+. Connected Classrooms is one, and we have some links again in the show notes for today. So you can join an existing teacher network in social media spaces like Facebook or Google+, and find other teachers who are interested in connecting and collaborating with you. And then I mentioned it before, if you're really looking for that global connection and you want to talk to students and teachers and people who are living in other countries and you're not sure how to get started and none of those things are going to work for you to get started, you could connect with people in international schools. There are international schools in every country in the world. There are many, usually in large cities. Here in Bangkok, I think there's something like over 100 international schools here in Bangkok. So if you wanted to find out more about Thai culture or life in Thailand or Southeast Asia or the developing world or specifically about Buddhism or other aspects of Thailand, you might want to connect with someone in an international school in that country, and they might be able to help you and give kind of a perspective locally from that specific place. So we've talked about why you'd want to connect your classroom. We've talked about some strategies for starting small, and then I just shared kind of my top tips for connecting yourself and building that personal learning network for you as an individual so you can make those deep and meaningful connections with other educators online before you start connecting your class. And that is my third part there, to connect your class. So once you as an educator feel like you have these global connections, and maybe you've started small with some of those ideas that I shared earlier, maybe now you want to do something bigger. And I'm calling them custom collaborations in my notes here. And the idea behind a custom collaboration is that you and a partner class would work together and create something that fits the needs of your curriculum context of both classrooms. So the idea behind a custom collaboration is not to let technology take over. You want your core content, your curriculum, the learning to be the focus, but the idea is to partner with another classroom and do work together. And my first exposure to that, I think Mads mentioned earlier, was through the Flat Classroom projects with Julie Lindsay and Vicki Davis. And basically the idea behind that Flat Classroom project is that you can bring two classrooms together and they can produce one piece of work, or partners in those classrooms can produce an individual piece of work, even though they might never meet each other. And there are so many global collaboration projects going on now because Flat Classroom was started quite a while ago. So there's lots of examples for you to look at to see how you might partner with another classroom and work together and have your kids create something, even though they're never going to be in a physical space together. So my first recommendation, as you're getting started with your custom collaboration, my very first recommendation is to do some window shopping. Check out some other projects and get an idea of what other people are doing and what it looks like and how it works, because there's lots to learn from looking at other people. Hi, Robin. Thanks for joining us. Yes, you totally did do this with Traveling Teapot. That is a great example of a global collaboration project. And I just realized that I haven't seen many of these comments because the show notes were pinned over them. So now I'm scrolling over just to make sure I'm getting everybody. Thanks for joining us again, Robin. And Mads had lots of ideas here too. Sharing images of how they get to school, what they have for lunch, what their classrooms look like, their hobbies. That's another great idea for just kind of getting a picture of what the world looks like in different spaces. So before you start one of those, I recommend you have a look at some other projects that are available so you have an idea of what is realistic, what is achievable, who is doing projects like this, because you might actually even find a partner in there and doing your window shopping before you kind of have to even get started. So that will help you understand what a good global collaboration looks like. And we have tons of resources in the show notes for today if you want to see some examples that we like at Eduro Learning. So once you've done your window shopping and you have an idea for what you might want to do with a partner, and maybe you've kind of built your personal learning network so you kind of have an idea of who you might want to work with, you know you're going to be focusing on the learning, on the content, on what you want students to know and be able to do, then you can actually build that collaboration. And to do that, you might want to create a public-facing space for your connected classroom. And we actually have a series of resources on that coming up soon that you might be interested in to kind of build that connected classroom space for your kids and the kids that will be participating around the world. Those are really my top tips for connecting your classroom. It's a critical skill. Please make sure you give your kids an opportunity to connect globally. It's well worth it. It's exciting, it's engaging, it's empowering. And then start small. Give yourself the opportunity to try to figure it out in a simple and easy way where you feel like you can have some success and you're opening the doors to your classroom, but it's not super stressful. And then take some time to connect yourself so you understand the value and the purpose of being a connected educator, and all the little kind of technical challenges that might come up with connecting your class. You might have had experience with those already, being a connected educator yourself. And then spend some time doing some window shopping so that you can connect your class, build that global collaboration project where you and another classroom are working together over a period of time with shared learning goals, where students are collaborating to create something new. So that's my kind of steps for becoming a connected classroom. I hope you guys have enjoyed that. I made a mission to myself to stick to 20 minutes, and it's just 20 minutes now, so hopefully that's a good amount of time. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. We will be back next week with another Facebook Live chat. It will be Jeff, and hopefully I will be there with you if we can get the software to work. So ideally it will be me and Jeff, but no matter what, it'll be just Jeff. So thanks so much for joining us again this morning. We've got lots of great resources coming for you over the next few weeks from Eduro Learning. So thank you very much. Have a great day. See you guys next time. Bye.